I am taking you on a journey through the national parks today as we talk about my favorite hiking trails to do in the U.S. national parks. My name is Ash. I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes. And Dirt in My Shoes got its name from my love of hiking. So anytime I'm in the national parks, I'm always looking for a fantastic hiking trail. I spend the majority of my time in the parks on the trail. That's just what I love to do. And so today I wanted to share with you 10 of my favorite national park hiking trails, ranked from 10 to 1, so that you can add these to your bucket list and so that you can see what's out there as you plan your next national park vacation. Now, I do have a couple of disclaimers before we jump in. I just want to let you know how I made this list. My first disclaimer is that this list is pretty heavy on the big mountain parks. That's my favorite place to hike. And so a lot of my favorite trails are located in those giant mountain parks that just have a lot of really beautiful views and a lot of wildlife, and you're walking through some forests, but it's typically more the big mountain parks in the West where you'll find my personal favorite hiking trails. The second disclaimer is that there are a lot of popular trails on this list, and that's because if you're looking for the best hikes in the national parks, typically you're going to want to make sure you hit those really popular trails. They are popular for a reason. Now, the timing of when you go to those trails will make a huge difference in how much you actually enjoy them, but I do include a lot of those bigger, more popular trails in this list, because I think as a first-time visitor, it would be a shame if you missed out on those. If you're worried about the timing for those big popular trails, you can go to dirtinmyshoes.com and check out the itineraries I have. I will help you get to those popular trails at the least busy and least crowded times. Disclaimer number 3 is that I tried not to double up on any national parks. So I tried to give you 10 different trails in 10 different national parks. And the reason that I say that is because I probably easily could have filled my 10 favorite trails out of like just 3 or 4 parks. I definitely have my favorite parks for hiking. So parks like Glacier and Grand Teton, Mount Rainier, places like that could have just totally dominated my list. But I did try to pick one trail from each park so that you didn't get the same park over and over. And lastly, I did try to put in some easier trails that are really a good bang for your buck. And so 3 of the trails on this list are 3 miles or less and easier trails that you could do with your family. Or if you're not an avid hiker, those would be a really great place to start to get just gorgeous views and a really cool experience. Okay, so let's jump into my list of my 10 favorite national park hiking trails. Starting with trail number 10, which is a shorter trail. As I mentioned, I'm trying to add in some shorter trails. We are going out to Washington State to Olympic National Park, hiking to Sol Duck Falls. Sol Duck Falls is a trail that is 1.6 miles round trip. It's about 200 feet of elevation gain. It's good for pretty much everybody. We have hiked this trail with our kids since they were very, very young. And it's just one of those places that transports you into a magical fairy forest. It is absolutely phenomenal. The views along the way are gorgeous. You're going through like old growth trees. If you get any sunlight, then the sunlight kind of peeks through the trees and just puts a golden glow on everything. And you're hiking through this magical forest to these waterfalls. And it's kind of just one waterfall, but it breaks up into 3 or 4 sections. And it is one of the most picturesque and beautiful spots in any national park. You gotta avoid the crowds on this one or it doesn't feel quite as magical, and it's really hard to get parking and it gets really, really busy. So we typically like to be here around golden hour or sunset so that we don't have to fight for parking and the trail is much quieter. Trail number 9 is the Notch Trail in Badlands National Park, South Dakota. So this is another shorter trail that I really, really love. And Badlands is just such a cool national park. So definitely worth coming out here. You can hit so many different things while you're in this area. But the Notch Trail is one of the most iconic things you can do in this national park, in any national park. People love this trail. I love this trail. And so definitely add this one to your list. The Notch Trail is 1.5 miles round trip. It has about 100 feet of elevation gain, and most of that elevation gain is done by climbing a really cool ladder. This ladder is epic. You can get some really cool photos. It looks scarier in the photos, I would say, than actually climbing the ladder, but it does add that extra jolt of adrenaline into your hike. It makes it feel really adventurous. Once you get to the top of the ladder, then you're kind of following along the cliffs of the Badlands. And so that also feels really adventurous as well. And for this hike, for me, it's more about the journey getting to the end rather than the view at the end. The ladder and the cliffside walking is the cool part of this hike. So definitely add it to your list. It is a very fun hike. Trail number 8 is the Devil's Garden Trail in Arches National Park. So we're traveling to my home state of Utah. Arches National Park just has some really awesome hiking trails. It's hard to pick a favorite in this park, but for me, that would be the Devil's Garden Trail. I love this trail because you get to see 8 arches while you hike this trail. And again, it adds like that extra element of adventure because there is a little bit of cairn following. You're following these stacks of rocks. You're climbing up fins. You're going up and over things. Like you're having to navigate in a different way than just staying on your 2 feet and hiking. So I really love the adventure aspect of this trail, in addition to being able to just see so many cool arches on one hike. The Devil's Garden Trail is about 7 miles round trip if you do the whole thing. It's about 1,000 feet of elevation. Again, you're kind of, avoiding obstacles and going up and over things and stuff. And so it does feel a little bit harder than a traditional hiking trail in some spots for sure. The nice thing about this trail, though, is that you don't have to do the full 7 miles. There's good places to break up the trail, to turn around. You don't have to go super far to see some really cool things. And so don't let that number scare you away. Definitely at least start it. You can go to Landscape Arch, which is one of the coolest arches in the park. You can easily get there within a few miles and see a few arches along that route. Then you can continue on if you want to. You can go up to a few more arches. You can go to Double O Arch, which is a good turnaround point. Or you can continue and complete the whole loop past Double O to make it that 7 miles. At this point, you might be feeling like this is a lot of information and I've got a whole bunch more for you coming up. But you can always go over to dirtandmyshoes.com and I have these parks and I have these trails right here. And so, for example, you want to go to South Dakota to the Badlands right there. I have information about the Notch. You want to go to Olympic and do Solduck. I've got it right there. Arches, I actually have a full trail guide for this Devil's Garden route. And so if you go over to Dirt in My Shoes, you can see I just have a ton of information about how to get to Arches and how to enjoy it. But I also have full trail guides as well if you want more information. Hike number 7 is the Mist Trail in Yosemite National Park. This trail is epic. I think it really highlights just how beautiful the big granite peaks of Yosemite are, and it takes you past a couple of the coolest, most powerful waterfalls in the park, which is also just very quintessential Yosemite. And so you really see the best of what Yosemite Valley has on this trail. It's one that you absolutely should not miss. It is one of my very favorites. Now, the reason that this trail is not further up on my list or more of a favorite is because it is super crowded most of the time. It gets so busy. It can be very, very congested, which I think just kind of takes away from the enjoyment for me. However, it makes up for that if you go during the right season and you can get misted, which is why it's called the Mist Trail. So to get misted, you'll want to go in the early summer. So peak waterfall season in Yosemite is usually May into June, maybe a little bit into July, but things definitely start drying up as July goes on. And then later in the summer and fall, there's hardly any water in the waterfalls. And so go early in the summer, and then this trail, the Mist Trail, takes you up the side of Vernal Fall. You're on rock steps. You're walking up the side of the cliffs right next to the waterfall. You are getting misted like crazy. You're going to get drenched if you go during this time. And it is one of the coolest hiking experiences you can have in the national parks. After you hike up the side of Vernal Fall, then you can continue on if you want to and go up to the top of Nevada Fall, which is just absolutely gorgeous. So this trail is a little bit more of a choose your own adventure type trail. You can go as far as you want. You can just go to the Vernal Fall Overlook if you want. That's about 2 miles-ish round trip. You can go all the way up to both waterfalls. You can stop after one. There's a lot of options here, so don't skip it, but do time it well so that you're just not in the congestion the whole time. Hike number 6 is the South Kaibab Trail in Grand Canyon National Park. The South Kaibab Trail is hands down my favorite trail in the Grand Canyon. I love this trail so much. And so I had to include it here on this list. Hiking in the Grand Canyon is a beast of its own. It is so challenging, even for the most seasoned hiker. It's going to really push you to your limits in most cases. But what I love about the South Kaibab Trail is that this is one of the trails that takes you all the way to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, but it does so in the quickest possible time. It's pretty much a straight shot down. So you do have some switchbacks here and there, but a lot of it you're just going down, down, down pretty directly to get you to the bottom the quickest. Because of that, instead of doing switchbacks a whole bunch of times, it takes a really interesting route down the canyon that just, I think, gives you the best views of the Grand Canyon as you're going down. So it's not as monotonous as some of the other trails like the Bright Angel. The Bright Angel Trail is really monotonous to me. I don't love that one, and so I don't like to spend a ton of time on that one. But the South Kaibab, like hands down, you'll just get, your view changes the whole time. You'll get a really cool experience on this one. So the South Kaibab Trail is 7 miles one way. People do hike up this trail, but I don't recommend it. Most people like to go down this trail because it is steeper and faster to get to the bottom. And you're losing about 5,000 feet of elevation. So if you're a hiker, that number is just crazy. It's crazy. 5,000 feet in one hike, especially in 7 miles. Holy smokes. So do come prepared for that, and just know that that 7 miles is only getting you to the bottom of the canyon. From there, you need to decide how you're going to get back out and which trail you're going to use. And so that is going to add additional mileage. If you think I'm crazy and you never want to hike this trail, I totally understand. You can shorten this trail and do just a couple of day hikes. So I recommend either going to Ooh-Ah Point or continuing on a little bit further and going out to Cedar Ridge. Both of these destinations are located along the South Kaibab Trail. They make for a really cool couple of hours of hiking. So you don't want to go all the way to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and come back out. That's fine. I totally understand that. But definitely at least go down to Ooh-Ah Point so that you can get that vantage point of being below the rim at the Grand Canyon, which is one of the most awe-inspiring views that you can have. Hiking trail number 5 is the Beehive Trail in Acadia National Park. This is in Maine. We're going all the way east out to Acadia, which is just a really cool national park. I love this national park. The Beehive Trail is a shorter trail, so if you're looking for something that's not huge and long and a big time commitment and super challenging, the Beehive Trail ticks off those boxes. but it is such a unique trail and something you probably won't experience anywhere else. So in Acadia, you will find what are known as ladder and rung trails. And these trails actually have iron rungs that are bolted in or drilled into the granite cliffs that help you finish your hiking trail. In most cases, they're helping you try to get to the top of something or around some cliffs or something like that. But Acadia has a few really cool iron rung trails. And so the Beehive is the most famous of these iron rung or these ladder and rung trails in Acadia National Park. Basically what you're doing is you are trying to get to the top of the Beehive, which is about 500 feet above sea level. You're starting at sea level, and so that's your elevation gain. And over the course of 1.9 miles round trip, you are getting to the top of the Beehive and back down. However, as you're working your way to the top, you are holding on to these iron rungs that are bolted into the cliffs. And so it's more of a scrambling type experience than a hiking experience. It is so much fun. You absolutely have to add this hike to your bucket list. And if you want to know more about it, you can go to dirtandmyshoes.com, or I also have a video here on YouTube all about the Beehive Trail. So go check that out. Trail number 4, we're making it to the really good stuff. So trail number 4 for me is the Narrows in Zion National Park, Utah. Zion is just full of really cool trails, so it's really hard to pick just one. But for me, the Narrows is just so unique. It is so cool. It's such a different experience than you'll have in a lot of places. And that's why it is on my list of favorite national park hiking trails. So the Narrows is cool. Does it count as a hiking trail? Because you're actually hiking through the river. You're not following a set trail really. You're just walking through the river. You have your special shoes and socks. You've got your big walking stick to help you balance as you hike through this river. And you're going up into just a really beautiful slot canyon. And so you've got those big red cliffs on either side of you as you walk through the river. And it's just so magical. It's so hard to beat this experience. Now, my favorite way to do the Narrows is the top down. So there's 2 different ways. You can start at the bottom, go up, turn around, and come back down. Or you can start at the very top and just go from top to bottom without having to turn around or retrace your steps. So if you do the top down, it's 16 miles. The elevation is very minimal because you're just walking in the river, so you're following that route. And what you can do is you can actually stay in the Narrows along this route. You can camp overnight. And that really helps. Not only is it a super cool experience to be there overnight, but what it also helps with is to set you up perfectly to get through the Wall Street section of the Narrows, which is the coolest section of the Narrows, before all the crowds get there from the bottom going up. And so I really like that because you're able to hike through Wall Street with hardly any people in there if you get an early enough start. And so that's my favorite way to see the Narrows. If you do the top-down route, though, you do need a permit. So keep that in mind. If you're doing bottom up, you don't need a permit. You just have to turn around at Big Springs, which is a certain part along the trail. So either way, you'll want the gear. That really helps with the enjoyment. You'll want to plan on being out for at least a half a day, even longer if you want to go as far as you can. But this is just a really cool experience to have. If this doesn't sound fun to you, or if you want to do this and something else really cool, check out the Angel's Landing Trail in Zion. This is a very popular and famous hike. Between the 2 of them, it's hard to choose a favorite. I went with the Narrows, but you definitely should not miss Angel's Landing either. Trail number 3, the Highline Trail in Glacier National Park, Montana. The Highline Trail. There's just no words. This trail is so cool. It's cool from the very first step you take. So you're driving up to the mountaintops, you get out of your car, You walk along this trail for a minute, and you're immediately on the cliffs with just mountains all around you, gorgeous glacier mountains. So you can go as far as you want on this trail. To do the whole route, it's about 12 miles round trip. But a lot of people like to just go for a minute and turn around. You can go to Haystack Pass and turn around, which is about 7 miles or so. There's a lot of different options, but I always encourage everyone, even if you're not a big hiker, even if you don't want to be out on this trail for very long, just start it. You will not be sorry because the views are just, they're blow your socks off right from the beginning. You've got to do the Highline as a first-time visitor to Glacier. At least start it, like I said, but you've got to hit this trail if you're going to this park for the first time. But as I said in the beginning of the video, I could fill my list of favorite hikes with trails from Glacier. So this is by no means like the very best one. It's just the one that you should start with. You will not be sorry. You will absolutely love it. But just know, if you're really wanting to dig in, there are so many fantastic trails in Glacier National Park. We're getting close to the end. It's so hard to narrow down my favorites and to rank them like this. But trail number 2, my second favorite trail in any national park, is the Skyline Trail in Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier National Park is in Washington State. Mount Rainier is a volcano. It's a 14,000 foot volcano and is just incredibly impressive in every single way. It has so many glaciers on it. It's just so menacing, and it just dominates the skyline in the Seattle area. And so to have the chance to be able to hike on this mountain is a big deal. It feels like it while you're there. It will absolutely just take your breath away to be up close to this just phenomenal volcano. So the Skyline Trail is 5.5 miles round trip. It's about 1,700 feet of elevation. I think it feels like more. Every time I get on this trail, I'm like, this trail is hard, but it is worth it. And so you start at Paradise, you hike up. It's pretty steep, so don't let that dissuade you. This first part is steep because you're just going up, up, up the mountain. You're getting closer to this mountain. You're getting closer to the glaciers. You're getting closer to the waterfalls coming off of it. All of it, you're working your way just so close to what feels like the peak of Mount Rainier. Along the way, you're seeing all these wildflowers and streams and just, oh, it's so beautiful. But really what makes this trail cool is just Mount Rainier in all its glory. Around every turn, as you're working your way up this trail, you're just staring Mount Rainier in the face. This is the trail that mountain climbers use to access the higher elevations of Mount Rainier. And so you're working your way up the mountain with everybody else. The trail eventually splits off and kind of circles around and goes back down, but you're just treated to such gorgeous views, waterfalls, wildflowers, wildlife, all the above on the Skyline Trail. And we made it. My number 1 favorite trail in any national park. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you probably know what my favorite national park is. This trail is in that park. I could not avoid putting this one as my number 1 favorite trail just because I love this national park so much. So my number 1 favorite trail is the Teton Crest Trail in Grand Teton National Park, Wyoming. I have grown up hiking Grand Teton National Park. I have covered almost every trail in that park by now. I can't stay away. I love this park. That's where I got my first job as a national park ranger. It was at Grand Teton National Park because of how much I love this park. So, as I said, I've covered almost every trail in this park. I have hiked this park so extensively. There's almost nowhere I haven't gone. But really, like the crowning glory, the best trail, the one that encompasses just so many different trails and so many different views, is the Teton Crest Trail. The Teton Crest Trail is a backpacking route. It's about 40 miles if you do it from end to end. You're starting at the southern end of the Tetons and working your way up. You're on the back side of the Tetons, just staring those mountains down, seeing them get closer. You work your way through a couple of mountain passes. You see a bunch of lakes, a lot of wildflowers, a lot of wildlife, and you're passing by just that beautiful Grand Teton Peak as you make your way through. Now, if a 40-mile backpacking route just does not sound fun to you and that's not really your style and you don't want to be out that long, that's fine, because you can actually shorten this trail and still see a lot of really great stuff. So the Teton Crest Trail, as I mentioned, goes along the backside of the Tetons, but there are canyons all along the way that bisect into the Teton Crest Trail. And so you can access this trail from a lot of different points. You can go up Granite Canyon, you can go up Death Canyon, you can go up Cascade Canyon, Paintbrush Canyon, Open Canyon. Anyway, you can get up there through all these different canyons. And each canyon in and of itself is a really cool experience, really great for hiking. And you can loop it around. So you can go up one canyon, you can catch the Teton Crest on the backside, go for a minute, and then head back down a different canyon. And so there are so many different options, but you are promised just spectacular mountain scenery the whole way. Head over to dirtandmyshoes.com and look up these parks that I've mentioned these trails in. You can see all of the trip planning stuff that you need to make your trip a reality. I have trail guides for a lot of these bigger trails. So you can see on this one, I do have a Teton Crest trail guide if you're interested in making this something you want to add to your itinerary. I am so excited for you to hit some of these national park hiking trails. These are just some of my favorite places to be, and I'm so excited that I got to share them with you today. I hope that you're able to get out there and to explore the national parks, and don't forget to get some dirt in your shoes.